Thanks for tuning in. I'm Aaron Days, your host, and today's special guest is none other than the hit king, Charlie Hustle. He played for the Cincinnati Reds back in the day. None other than Pete Rose is sitting down with us today. I really hope you enjoy this interview. Sit back and relax, and here we go. Can you tell me a little bit about your father and some of the things that he tried teaching you?
Well, first of all, I was very fortunate when I was a kid. But you got to remember one thing about me. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. And when I was growing up, my father was an athlete. He was the best football player to come out of Cincinnati. He was a baseball player. He was a basketball player. And I was the ball boy, the bat boy, and the water boy for his teams. So I was always going to sporting events. And he was very fundamentally sound. And he would never criticize me in front of my peers. He would always talk to me on the way home about what I did right or what I did wrong. Okay? That's what you have to do as fathers today. Right. Don't yell at your kids when they're in front of their teammates because they won't want to play. Right. So I was successful strictly because of my dad. I was just the next generation Pete Rose with a bigger and better opportunity.
So Coach Mike told me you were never satisfied when you got the first hit at bat.
No, you can't. I tell people this all the time, okay? And you got to understand that I work in Vegas 20 days a month, 5 hours a day signing autographs. So I see a lot of kids and a lot of kids' fathers. The three bits of advice I give the kids, one is to be aggressive. Two, be more aggressive. And three, never be satisfied. That's why I have the record for 2-hit games, 3-hit games, 4-hit games, and 5-hit games. If I was in the batter's box, I was trying to get a hit. It didn't matter what the score it was, what day of the week it was, who was pitching. If I'm playing, I'm trying to get a hit. That's the way you have to think. In sports, you can't be satisfied, okay? Because tomorrow may never come. You have to worry about today.
We talked to the kids about not being satisfied in a sense of, can you give more? Can you give more?
Well, first of all, okay, kids have to understand that everybody I'm talking to right now has expertise, okay? And what you got to do, figure out your expertise as early as you possibly can. Then just work on them every day to be better. In other words, don't try to be something you're not. Okay, if you're an athlete and you can run. If you can hit. If you're a football player and you can tackle. If you can run. If you can throw. Okay? If you want to be a doctor, work hard to be a doctor. Study. Okay? If you want to do good in school, you got to do your homework. If you want to do good on the baseball field, you got to take batting practice. Okay? But everybody has something they can do. It's just a matter of how early in your life do you find out what you can do. And once you find out you can do that, then you work on it day after day after day to be the best that you can be.
Right. Next question. What did Hall of Fame manager Sparky Anderson teach you and the rest of the Reds?
Well, Sparky Anderson, I played for 12 managers. Mm-hmm. And Sparky, without a doubt, was the best manager I ever played for. How do you rate managers? I rate them by W's and L's. So Sparky was the winningest manager I ever played for. And Sparky had a lot of philosophies. First of all, he understood people better than anybody I've ever been around. Okay? And Sparky's philosophy was this. Think about this. There's 3 ways you can treat a person. Pat him on the butt, kick him in the butt, or leave him alone. You don't pat the guy that needs kicked. You don't kick the guy that needs left alone. That's the only 3 ways you can treat a person. If you're going to ask them to go to war with you every night, which is what Sparky did to the Big Red Machine, we're going to war tonight. You got to know what makes them tick. Sparky knew his personnel, but he was the most street smart guy I've ever been around. And that's all you need to be, a coach in football, a coach in basketball, a coach in hockey, or a manager in baseball. You got to know your personnel. Everybody knows the sport they're in. You know, I didn't know any more about baseball than Tommy Lasorda of the Dodgers, but I knew more about my players. And that's the one that's going to be triumphant. You're going to have the biggest success is the one that understands his players.
Right.
Pretty much common sense.
Yeah. You got to know them. You got to have that personal relationship with them. I mean, if you don't know how they tick, how are you going to know how they work?
Who can you yell at? Who can't you yell at? It's just like if you got kids. You got more than one kid. They're probably opposites. You don't treat every kid the same. You got 3 or 4 kids, you might have 3 or 4 different personalities. Okay, it's the same way with sports.
Right. Who was the best teammate you played with, and what did they do during practice and during games? That guy that just
Well,
stuck out.
I had 12 Hall of Fame teammates. Now, when I got out of high school in June of 1960, I signed a contract with the Reds, and I went to Geneva, New York to play for the Geneva Reds. And I was 2 days out of high school. And there was a second baseman on that team named Tony Perez, who was 2 months out of Cuba. So me and Tony Perez have been friends for 60 years. We were friends at Geneva, we were friends in the minor leagues, and we were friends in the big leagues for so many years. So I'd have to say that Tony Perez is probably my biggest friend in baseball, along with Joe Morgan, along with Mike Schmidt, Andre Dawson, all good teammates. But the guy I've known the longest and is the greatest is Tony Perez. He's a Cuban, okay? And I love to talk to Tony because I can talk to him all day and I can laugh at him because I can't understand him. I tease him.
All right, you were nicknamed Charlie Hustle because you gave it all. You gave it your all in practice. You gave it your all in games. Who taught you that? And what
My
was
dad.
your
My
dad?
dad.
Taught you?
Listen, I played the same way in the minor leagues as I did when I was this big. Same way when I was this big if I was in the big leagues. Okay? One thing you can't do as an athlete, you can't cheat the fans. In other words, you got to bust your butt every day. Whether you're 4 years old or 40 years old, you gotta entertain the fans. You gotta give them their money's worth. All I did is played hard because I owed that to my teammates. I owed that to my fans. I owed that to my family. I owed that to the owners of the teams I played for. Okay, you're out there 2.5 hours a day. What's the big deal about busting your chops for 2.5 hours a day? Most people go to work 8 hours a day. Baseball, games are 3 hours is a long game. So what? A long game means more runs scored. More runs scored means more base hits.
Right.
And all you're trying to do is hit a baseball and get a salary for hitting that baseball.
Yeah. So it's like no matter what game it is, what kind of game it is,
Play hard.
you bust your butt.
Play hard.
Yeah.
You owe it to your teammates.
Yeah. I like that.
I didn't play harder when I was 12 than I was when I was 32 or when I was 42. I tried to approach the game the same way. Enthusiastic. Got to have enthusiasm. Got to have enthusiasm for life. You know what I mean?
I do.
Team focus. They have enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Got to have that.
There's a guy.
It drives kids.
There's a guy's dad who would say to him and his brother every morning, you have to attack each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. It's like, what is that? It's like a supernatural enthusiasm.
Well, but first of all, I don't know. I ask people this all the time. Do you think you're born with enthusiasm? Do you think you're born with desire? Do you think you're born with work ethic? I think I got all those traits from my dad. Because I believe if you're around a mom and dad that's lazy and they smoke and they drink, you got a good chance of being lazy and smoking and drinking. I was around an athlete who was a father who he played till he was 42. So he was always going to practice or always going to the game. And he always drugged me with him. I'm in the car waiting for my dad when I know he was going to practice or going to a game. And that's the way I was with my kids. You know, you can't be lazy around your kids. You can't smoke around your kids. You can't drink around your kids because they're going to think it's okay. Because most kids love their parents and they love what they stand for. And if you stand for the wrong things, you're going to be taught the wrong things. It's pretty simple. It don't take a genius to figure all this stuff out.
I think one thing that kids can get, if they get this at an early age, like the young man you're working with here today, you know.
Try to develop good habits. All I'm trying to do, first of all, I'm not going to confuse him.
Right.
You can't confuse the youth of America, okay? You just try to speak from experience. I never did anything unless tell somebody I did something unless I did it. Everybody knows how to read about it.
Right.
But I'm not going to ask you to do this if I didn't do it.
Right.
I'm not going to ask you to do that if I didn't do it. Okay? And if I didn't do it, I'll go to somebody that did it and ask them. Then I can explain it to you better.
I think that made me think of like work ethic.
Yeah.
I can't ask you to work hard if I don't work hard myself. It makes absolutely no sense. It's a hypocrite. Can't do that.
Coaching is very important. If a coach lets players get away with things, they'll try to get away with more. The coach has to set one set of rules, and that's for everybody. Not the star of the player can do whatever he wants to do. Because on a team, everybody's a star as far as teammates. Everybody's helping everybody else to do one thing, win the game.
When you think back to your career, is there a moment that overwhelmed you when you think about it, and people may have helped you along the way?
Well, no, I got help along the way during my whole career. But you have to understand one thing. Okay, for the fathers listening to this right now, when you get home from work tomorrow and the lovely wife is in the kitchen cooking, go in the kitchen and stand there for 9 minutes and clap. That's how long the ovation was when I broke the record on September 11th, 1985. 9 minutes standing ovation from 50,000 people. You will not be able to clap for your wife for 9 minutes. I'm challenging you to do that. 9 minutes, clap for your wife who's cooking you supper.
Dang, that's saying something. What record do you hold means the most to you?
One record, and it sums up everything I've been talking about for the last 15 minutes, okay? I played in 1,972 winning games. That's 250 more than the guy that's second. So that's almost 2 seasons. And what does that attribute to? To my teammates. I always had great teammates. And we always thought about the same thing, winning the game. That's what you have to think about. Everybody, not 22 out of 25 guys, all 25 had to be thinking about winning every day. That's how you win. It's not easy. Winning's not easy. It's not hard either if you prepare yourself right, apply yourself right. That's what Team Focus tries to teach these kids at an early age. So when they get 18 or 19 or 20, they know what it is to win. And they know what it is to lose. That's just as important, okay? You get a better feeling if you win. Everybody's watching me right now. Your parents are in a better mood on the way home when you win. Your parents are in a better mood when you bring A's home instead of D's and C's. They are in a better mood. And if they're not in a better mood, you don't want them as parents.
Yeah, that stands out. One thing that makes me think of is coaches, dads, parents, friends, best friends, people that actually love you. If that person didn't care about you, they wouldn't correct you.
They wouldn't yell at you.
But because they correct you, because you get into them when
fine.
They do bad.
I told you this 15 minutes ago. It's fine for dads to coach your kids. Don't yell at your kid if he makes a mistake on the field in front of his peers.
Right.
Correct him on the way home in the car when you're talking about the game. And hopefully, if you're correcting your kid, you understand the game and you're correcting him in the right way. Because a lot of dads don't understand the game, but they still try to correct their kids. okay? There's not a lot of dads and moms that are school teachers, so they can't really tell them how to do their homework. Algebra. I can't tell my kid how to do algebra. The algebra teacher can. The history teacher can. Okay? That's the way it is. Everybody has expertise.
Well, I appreciate you, Mr. Rose. This has been an awesome time.
Well, you keep up the good work with Team Focus, because I pray for Mike Gottfried every day. He's the best. And when you got a leader like that, you got something going on for you. And I'm just trying to help Mike out any way I can. And I always help out the kids, because the youth of America is important to me and is really important to Mike Gottfried. Okay.
Never be satisfied. That right here, that hits you in the chest. Never being satisfied and just wanting to accomplish more, do more, never give up. I mean, that's a part of life. I hope that you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. And remember, God has a plan for your life.
Thanks again for tuning in. To learn more, visit www.teamfocususa.org. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook.